Well, ladies and gentlemen, so here I am again. God, same repeated theme. Made a video, and apparently my audio is being cut off. And I noticed it again when you guys started complaining in the live broadcast, like, "Hey, audio cuts off," and then I realized that audio is going fine, but then somehow towards the middle, it's off for 2 seconds on live one, and here it's fine. I don't know if I changed some settings in my OBS software, but anyway, so as you see from the title of the video, should you get used items for your home or for yourself? That's the question. And the reason why it sparked, I was actually, this was quite a few months back. I was hanging out with a great astrologer friend of mine, and we were just talking, and I was like talking about his chart, looking at his chart, and somehow, some way, we started talking about Swati Nakshatra, for his chart. And so I was telling him about this, and then he says, "You know what? There's something unique, because Swati is related to shoes." And he told me that he was once hanging out with a Himalayan astrologer. I think that's, don't quote me on it, but I think that was it. He was hanging out with this just brilliant astrologer. And I think it was somewhere in India, and he has lost a shoe. This great friend of mine who's an astrologer, brilliant astrologer. And he's like, for a day and a half, I had to borrow his shoes. He had a spare shoe, so I had to borrow his shoes. And in those day and a half, okay, his astrological knowledge, predictions, intuition just increased. It increased. And there was some incident where I think this person may had some sort of a health issue, some pain somewhere. And so this astrologer friend of mine also felt the pain at the same spot. And he just realized, like, whoa, wearing his shoe, I'm experiencing his life, his knowledge. So he kind of got scared off and took the shoes off, even though he was making brilliant predictions and was just getting the intuition out of nowhere. And coming back to this point, a couple of days ago, I was talking to this friend of mine because we're both into like watches, and I'm like a maniac of that. And I wanted to get this vintage watch that I've been eyeing for years. I'm like, I saw this watch somewhere. God, I want it. So I was just talking to him about it. I'm like, hey, look at this watch. I want this vintage watch. And while I was texting him, while I was just, we were talking back and forth, suddenly that moment came to me when we were talking 3 months back in person. And I asked him, hey, would you recommend me wearing like a vintage used watch? And that's where this whole conversation started, because what happens is everything is energy. Everything is energy. Specifically, energies of planets. And that's when, he kind of said, and I kind of like texted back and forth. I'm like, do you take on the energy of someone else? And he's like, absolutely. And I went back to that whole shoe thing. And so, yes, it is very true that when you get any used item, specifically when it comes to jewelry and clothing, okay, you do not know what life that individual lived, what pain they may have gone through, what good things they may have gone through. Sometimes wearing, let's say, old clothes or some vintage jewelry, used jewelry, suddenly things just start happening in your life. You get into a relationship, you get a new promotion, you get a new job, and many of the times these occurrences, I've even noticed back in the days, when I didn't have money, I would just go through thrift stores and just buy myself a jean and this and that. And I had noticed how things kind of like just progressed or were delayed. So we as humans, we don't realize the subconscious energy that is working in the background, the frequency of this universe that is working in the background. Because for us, we're very scientific beings, oh, why is wearing somebody else's clothes, jewelry is going to affect me? It's washed. And I also then connected with what my mom used to say. She never liked buying anything from thrift stores and all that, because she's like, no, if you ever get something from there, wash it. But still, there's a residue of the energy. This is why when you see people, doing seances, or people wanting to talk to some things, they get an item. Like a true psychic will say, just bring me some item they have. And they put it there. Let's say someone's dad passed away. So, they say, okay, so here's a watch. That's his favorite watch. So they will put it there, concentrate on it, and the energy would develop and develop. So this is something you have to realize, that when you get an item which is used, you are taking on karmic energy of that person. You definitely are. Because I have now heard more stories once I activated this conversation a couple of days ago. Talked to other people that I know, and they concur with that. That when you get anything which is used, you better know how to cleanse that. It's not like you cannot. Because look, if you are financially not doing well, I wasn't doing well, I used to go to thrift stores. For me, since I came to US, my grandma, who passed away, and my mom, we used to go to thrift store, walking distance. Because when we came to US, we had little money. So for me, it was just more of like a thing, like, oh, people do this normally, and people do it normally. But that's where lack of knowledge may hurt you. That if somebody, let's say, was constantly sick, chronically sick in their life, but yet they donated all their clothes, and you buy their jean and you start wearing their jean, suddenly within days or weeks, you're like feeling sick, and you're thinking it's the weather, it's the allergies. Well, it could be that the residue of their karmic energy are in those clothes, are in those pieces of jewelry. So my opinion would be to always get something which is new, get something which is, not worn. And it's all about intentions too. So when you go and buy something from a store, pretty sure other people may have tried those things. Like you get a necklace for yourself and you're wearing it, you're looking in a mirror, how am I looking? This looks good. Imagine how many necks that necklace might have been on. So even then, it has some energy, but the thing is, it's not owned. The intention is so powerful. It's really powerful, that the intent to own it. Now, I am the first person who owns this. That's like quantifying that whole thing. So whenever you buy jewelry, in India especially, it's common actually. Whenever you go buy jewelry, or especially, people buy gemstones for their astrological purpose, you dip it in Ganges water, Ganga, or especially rose water. But depending upon like how old the item is. If it's a new item, always, just wash it in rose water, cleanse it, play some mantra around it. But when you're getting something which may have been worn for years and years and years, one day of doing this small little cleansing may not do much. So I'm not saying I'm the expert who can tell you what to do, because I was actually recommended by the astrologer, you should, have an actual pandit or somebody do a whole puja on it. So whether it's couches, whether it's clothing, jewelry, I would definitely, say that get them new, or especially the easiest way, especially with the furniture, you can sage it. Like anytime you, let's say, get a foreign furniture, you want to, like, people collect antique furniture. And my wife loves antique furniture, although we don't have any, but you always do sage around it. Sage is actually very powerful. It can cleanse things. And as you know, Venus represents anything that makes you feel and look beautiful, which is jewelry, gems, clothing, perfume. That it's Venus. And it's funny I'm talking about Venus because I'm going to be doing my lecture on Venus next week in my school, but that's Venus. Now, when you get something old, when you get something antique, what is it that is then being represented with? It's being represented with Saturn, Shani. And if you look at the quantified difference between Shani and Venus, it's a world of difference. Shani makes you work hard towards getting something. Venus actually wants to give you. Through simple devotion, Venus wants to give you. But Venus loves beautiful things and fresh things. So let's say if you ever do, like, and I've been a witness to this too, where when, let's say, you do any kind of like a Shukra Puja, Venus Puja, everything has to be new, fresh. Like even when you get flowers to offer to, any kind of like a god or planetary deity, you can't even smell it because they're supposed to smell it first. You have to take a shower, wear clean clothes. You can't just like wear something, just sitting there. No, you have to iron it. You have to really make it look fresh and new. So it is a very strong energy in items. All the items that are around you, whether it's this little box, this television, everything is emitting energy. Now, of course, if I had my choice, I would probably love to wear Kapiel Raaj shoes. So if I ever get a chance to get, Kapiel Raaj used shoes, I would love to wear them and then do reading on that. Because he's the most purest person who does nothing but sadhanas and is one of the most purest astrologers out there. But still, it's always better to get something new. If you just want to get something for the sake of getting it, and yet you can't afford the new one, and you don't really need that item right now, wait and save money. Use the practical approach. So if, let's say you want to buy, a cell phone, a used cell phone. Let's say you have a phone right now, but of course it's a new smartphone that just came out. And used one, or let's say smartphone came out 6 months ago, and used one is $200 cheaper than the newer one. Well, you can surely get it, but who was holding it? What kind of communication and business was being conducted on that smartphone? Who was holding it with them? Who was putting it in their pocket? Because when you get something new, and even with houses too, like whenever you enter a new house, mostly houses are always used. Lucky enough, like we were the first one to come in this house. This is a new builder built house. But if you go, this is why, like you go into other houses, older houses, what is some of the most common things that you know about them? People experience like hauntings. Oh, somebody passed away here, and this energy is there, that. So you can literally see it working. How do you think mostly all the horror movies start with? Somebody moves into a house, they start experiencing things. Why? Because the person's energy was there. Whether they were benevolent or malevolent, how they lived their life That's how you would experience it. I've seen people who moved into a house where this person always took care of other people, where this person literally gave their wealth to other people. And so when these new people come in, they start taking care of other people. While what they're doing, they suddenly feel like, you know what, we want to give back. So then they find out all these things, and then they realize that, oh, we were doing pretty much the same thing that the previous owner did. And previous owner doesn't even have to be dead or passed away. You know, they could just simply move, but their energy is here. Their consciousness is here. But especially, you know, the best thing to do is to sage. Sage the item. That's the most powerful and the simple one that I know of, besides the other complicated rituals you do for jewelry, especially anything on your body. That's, I would just say, just get new things, because those are something that are just built up from years and years. But if you get a house, you get, you know, furniture, you get anything, you sage it, purify that energy. And there's actually like different types of sages. There's different types of sages. Some are much more stronger. They say this one is stronger than the other. I don't want to like say it, but because I don't know much myself about sages, but I just know that sage is one of the most powerful element to purify the air around you. This is why in spiritual practices too, they use incense, right? Agarbatti. So when you do meditation, when you are doing some puja, what is that agarbatti doing? It's purifying the ether around you. All the negative energy, the negative thoughts you have inside you vanish away. Try this, because that's something I can vouch for 100%. When I do meditation in my office, in this little room, without incense, it's a completely different energy. With incense, it's it's fresh. I mean, I can just feel it. You can feel it because it purifies the ether around you. And this is actually something, don't quote me on it, but I think Sri Yukteswar told Yogananda in the book Autobiography of a Yogi. Or I must have heard it, but I think it was Yogananda quoting it somewhere. I guess Sri Yukteswar was talking about ether. And then I think he was also saying why, you know, spiritual sadhana is done with lighting up an incense, because it's purifying the ether. Scientifically, it's purifying the ether. Whatever energies around you. So imagine invisible energies there that makes you feel a certain way. Same way, if somebody else wore this shirt and I put this on myself, it's energy. Everything is down to the quantum level. It's all energy. So this is something that I wanted to bring out, because, you know, I was like so close to getting that vintage watch, but then I'm like, I don't know who wore that watch. I don't know what this person is, what they did in their life, you know, what were they doing, what were their sins, what were their karmas. Because, you know, I could take on part of their life's karma upon me. So this is why, because I dealt with this just in the last couple of days, I'm like, okay, no, that's okay. I'll wait. Or that's okay. I'll let go of this desire of getting this vintage piece. But again, it doesn't mean you can do it. You just need to know the proper way of completely cleaning out. Anything on the body has to be cleaned out in a much more, you know, detailed manner than just saging it. Saging is absolutely good, but that's more of like a home, you know. And so I remember when I was doing my live just 15, 20 minutes ago, somebody was saying, what about used cars? Absolutely. Same thing with that. Used cars, who's sitting in it? Who was driving it? You know, whose name was the car in the first time? And sometimes when you get a used car, it could have 2 different owners, 3 different owners. So always sage the car from inside. But car is not something you're wearing. The only time you would use a car is going from A to B, parking it somewhere most of the time, then coming back. So it doesn't have that much of a residue of their energy, but it still does. It absolutely does. So, you know, just wanted to address this simple context of, you know, our daily lives that we tend to not pay attention to, but it's very important, especially like, you know, if you've been feeling down, if you don't feel like, why am I feeling this way? I mean, did you get anything that was used by someone else? Now, this is why all the yogis kept their home very simple things. Little, I mean, like less than 10% of the items would be in their home, in their room. Just a bed, a book, a lantern, their own clothes, everything. And that's why they were always in that pure energy. But what we do, we tend to just buy things, you know, but it's better to just get newer ones. Okay, so if you have been feeling this way, you know, just sage the things, sage the items, and see if there's a difference in you know, in how you feel. But again, it's a very complex matrix, but it's one of the ways you can, at least out of the 50 things that are happening in your life, at least you can align one thing, and that can, you know, trigger a chain effect to improving the rest of the things. Okay, so anyway, guys, this was just my simple, you know, opinion on these things, because of the fact I dealt with them, and then suddenly I'm like, you know what, people should know about this. You know, people should know about this. Okay, so anyway, we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully from my studio. Bye-bye.